The next person who I'm going to welcome on is Paul. And Paul has worked with and developed a product called New Leaf Technologies, which is a really elaborate, I suppose, like an LMS, Paul, with adaptive learning in terms of assessments and courses that can be created and a range of different tools. So really complex, really easy to use, and a really interesting learning tool. So over to you, Paul. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much indeed, Corinne. Hello to everybody. I'm going to share my screen. So just to get cracking, let me just give you a little bit of an overview about who we are and what we do. We are very involved in the commercial sector. We do a lot of work with some really top brands in the country, both within South Africa and externally. We have clients across Africa and the Middle East. We do a lot of work in the financial services sector, where security is important. But as you can see there, that we're into mining, we're into retail, we're into all sorts of different things, and we do quite a lot of work with institutions and training academies as well. We're just dipping our toes now into the educational market, and one thing I have certainly discovered quite quickly is that in the educational market, there are literally hundreds of tools that people can use. My wife is a teacher, and like many of you, she was thrown into the deep end with COVID and suddenly had to learn how to use all sorts of different tools to get by. And really, I think one of the difficulties that schools face is the fact that there's different preferences. Different teachers have different preferences. They've got different methodologies. And you'd need different tools for different grades and even for different subjects. So we have these whole bunch of different tools that we all use, but nothing really pulls it all together. And the product that I'm going to really talk to you about today is, it's called a New Spring, and it's a product of New Leaf, and it's right there in the middle of your screens there. But really what this does is it sets you up with a framework that will streamline all of the different tools and how you work into a proper learning journeys. And we can build content in the platform, or we can build content outside of the platform. We can link the platform to other systems, HRM, school management systems, whatever it might be. And we can do all sorts of things when it comes to learner login. So maybe they're going to log in off a smartphone. Everything is available in a smartphone app. And really what it does, the system does, is allow you to use different tools in what hopefully becomes a more memorable learning journey. So you can put together a learning journey in the platform. We can put together a whole bunch of different activities. We can do things like virtual events or webinars. We can have assessment tools in the system. We can do things like video assessments or video assignments. We can even link it to external content. So to a large degree, there's a huge amount of content out there that's free and available. Just have to look at YouTube there. You can start to bring that free content into a learning journey very quickly. And we can do all sorts of advanced features like gamification, or even have chatbots if we want to. And part of what learning is about is collaboration. And certainly in the virtual space, what seems to be lacking a lot these days is the capacity for kids to collaborate with each other. So part of this platform has a big collaborative element to it, where students can encourage each other, talk to each other in the platform, and really, if they find something interesting outside of the lesson, so to speak, they can start bringing that to the lesson. They can go into different versions. So that's really pretty much what it's about in a nutshell. And if you look at this slide here, really it's just showing you the different types of activities that, we need to get through so that we can go through the awareness, the understanding, and the application side of things. So, for example, let's start off with a baseline assessment. Let's understand what the learners know to start off with. Maybe that's done through a quiz. And we can then say, right, let's have some hands-on training. That might be a virtual session, perhaps a classroom session. We can then provide them with e-learning that supports that. Maybe we put in some different challenges there. Maybe there's some videos. Maybe there's a little bit of one-on-one coaching. We can do interesting things like simulations. And, we just learned a lot about virtual reality, the capacity to bring virtual reality into these learning journeys with third-party applications. And, of course, your standard sorts of things, using audio, different tutorials, different infographics, even software simulations wherever necessary. So that's really pretty much what New Leaf does in a nutshell, and specifically the platform in New Spring. And really what we find is, certainly in the commercial sector, is that most LMS systems are not really that fun or engaging for the learner. It's just, download the PDF and read it type of thing. They're very difficult to manage virtual sessions and assessments and have everything in one place. Generally quite poor user uptake. It is imperative that there's mobile delivery, and a lot of systems simply don't have that. Very importantly is analytics and gamification. Now, analytics, really the capacity to have an overview of what an entire school may be doing, maybe different departments even, but right down to what individual learners are doing and how they're engaging and where they're engaging. And from those sorts of analytics, we can start to use that data in a diagnostic capacity to really have effective interventions where required. So the platform, the New Spring platform, really is very simple to use. It can be used as that core system, and all sorts of third-party tools can be used to plug into it. We can pull the analytics out of it across the board for everybody and everything. And it's very learner-centric, so it's very easy to use. Handy smartphone app or on any device, anytime, anywhere. The platform is an all-in-one. We call it an LXP, a learner experience platform. In it has a very comprehensive authoring tool, which makes it very quick and easy to put content into the platform. The advanced features include adaptive and personalized learning. And adaptive learning is really rather an interesting one, whereby we can identify what the knowledge gaps are and the system uses two algorithms to do that. And as learners go through their learning journeys, the content will change specifically to suit their own individual knowledge gaps. That's a very critical one, because you can imagine, 30 people sitting in a classroom, we seem to have to teach at the same pace as the slowest learner. And the guys that know quite a lot more sit there bored. Suddenly, individuals can now learn at their own pace, and we can leave out the content that they already know. So it's not so boring. It's a far more engaging experience. We have a little built-in tool in the platform called Memo Trainer. And Memo Trainer is a knowledge retention system. And what this does is it spits out a few questions every day that relate to the content that the student is currently learning. If they get those questions right, they fall out of the pool of questions, out of the question bank. If they get them wrong, then they get a little activity to do, like watch a video or read something. And ultimately, what this is doing is building up that knowledge retention over a period of time. And it also has exam practice functionalities. So if you've got kids that are sort of building up towards matric, perhaps we can load a whole bunch of past papers questions into the Memo Trainer, and they can create those practices for themselves and get to a point where they're exam ready. So that's a very useful tool. And ultimately, what it is doing is providing micro-learning where needed. All right, so that's pretty much the platform. I'm not entirely sure how I'm doing for time. I think I've got 1 minute left, so I'm just going to jump in very quickly and show you what we mean by content analytics. This is not in a school environment, but for every environment that we have, we create a very comprehensive dashboard specifically to suit your requirements. So we can have an overview, what is going on, when's it going on. We can look at logins, total time spent learning. We can look at preferred learning times. We can see who's doing what within the system. We can keep a comprehensive idea of all of the courses that we're currently managing. We can look at the different systems, subscriptions rather, start looking at completion rates. If we wanted to drill right down to individuals, we can look at, again, system usage, see when peak periods are, right down to really each activity that a learner might be doing within certain dates or times or whatever it might be. So this data is in real time. So it could be provided to a teacher, it could be provided to a parent, it could be provided to a head of the school. We can create hundreds of different report profiles to suit different people within an organization. So I think that gives you a very quick overview of the platform. Just with a couple of minutes that I've got here, I'm very quickly going to just show you what the platform looks like. A new spring. You can see here that it's asking me to do my memo training, start my few questions, or alternatively, I've got to do a quick baseline assessment. On the left-hand side here is my learning journey, and I'm going to start off with a video. Then I've got a classroom event that's coming up. Then just in this learning example, there's different types of content that we can put into the platform. There's a survey at the end of it, and we can even do things like provide certificates, right at the end of a learning journey. And then a little chat bot here, so a student could ask a question and we can come up with the answers. So that's a very brief overview from me. If let me just stop sharing my screen. If any questions are out there, I'm more than happy to take them. Or if anybody would like us to do a full system demo, I'm more than happy to do that. Also happy to spend a bit of time with you, learning about what you do and how we can help you to streamline perhaps the different tools that you do use, so that everything can be managed a little bit more smoothly. Thanks, Karen.
No, Paul, that was really enlightening. I think that lots of people will find that really useful. And for me, I think we're not using adaptive technologies enough yet. I think those in the long term are really going to help us as teachers, especially where the children can do an assessment, it then marks it, it then gives the children a path to help reinforce, which then goes to the whole concept of reflection, making the children reflect and learn. So I really do love that part of your course, which I think is different to many of the others that are out there.
Yes, you're quite right. And we started bringing this into the market in 2014. And when I started to talk about adaptive learning, then everybody looked at me blankly. And only in the last year or two have we really got traction on the adaptive learning side. There's a question there. How have you found the adjustment from corporates to education? Really the corporates, it depends on the client. Many of them have huge organizational structures that one has to climb up and eventually get there. So it takes us a long time in the corporate world to get into clients. I think the educational sector is hungry for technology at the moment. Many corporates have been early adopters of technology. So they were sort of running with LMS, server-based LMS platforms in the early 2000s. And many corporates now have actually found themselves behind. They made those early investments and now need to change. New Leaf has been around for, the business started in 1999. We were more HR focused back then. 2010, we re-strategized. And 2013, we went into the online world. In 2015, we rebranded as New Leaf Technologies.
So, Paul, if we think about technology and the way that you're describing it, how do you see the future of a classroom or school using this kind of adaptive tech?
Well, I think in reality, we are becoming more geographically diverse now, because it doesn't really matter. We don't have to be in a classroom to learn. What is very important is that there is still structure. We can go onto YouTube and learn what we want, but there's no structure to it. And, I think kids are being bombarded with information from all sorts of different angles. If we can just keep those learning journeys going, we can use free content, we can do all sorts of interesting activities, we can have this collaborative learning going all in the virtual space. I think the opportunities for schools are exactly that. They don't no longer bound by these geographical parameters. So there's no reason for some of these top branded schools to become international online schools where, their catchment is suddenly in the millions. So I think there's a really good opportunity to leverage off that. Were there any other questions?
Oh, thank you. I don't know. Are there any other questions?
One question okay. Have you had to shut down any projects because of COVID-19? Yes, most certainly we have. Some clients have simply not been able to, or have their priorities have changed. But I have to say that, thank heavens, we've had to shut down a few projects because COVID-19 has made us exceptionally busy. I've never been so busy in my life. I didn't used to be grey before March, but I am now.
Yeah, ooh. I think COVID has got some really interesting things on both spectrums. Like, you've got such extremes in so many different aspects through COVID. Paul, thank you so much for sharing. I really I see huge value.
Thank you.